I love that, and talking about that diversity there. Also mentioning when a partnership isn't a home run, right? So often in the real estate space in general, real estate investment, we always talk about the home runs, and it can make people feel like, am I the only one who had something that wasn't great, right? That was
Mm-hmm.
just like a break even or a single. And especially with partnerships or other JVs like that, I kind of joke, if you haven't had one that are some like lessons learned the hard way,
Yeah.
you really haven't done enough deals then,
Right. Yeah.
sadly.
I think that's what I keep hearing from a lot of people that recently we're at a real estate conference, and people that haven't invested in real estate yet are because they don't trust the people. They're scared of partnering up. Unfortunately, there are going to be situations where you're not going to know 100% it's going to be perfect. But in those situations, you can prepare. So I had one partnership that did not go like I thought. Everyone's super excited in the beginning. Everyone's going to say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And the deal's closed and the Facebook posts are up and everyone's giving you congrats. But then the real work starts when you start operating, and then you start seeing who is not up to par in that situation like they said they were.
Right.
But Mandy McAllister recently she recently talked about a shotgun clause. And I'm like, I always thought there should be some sort of performance clause in our OAs, is if you're not performing to this standard that you said you were going to, and put out each other's roles. And if you're not doing what you're saying you're going to do, then there needs to be a performance clause or a shotgun clause in there. So there's different things you can do. And that's once you're
Right.
part of the space more, you're learning and listening to these podcasts, you can prepare yourself properly to have these partnerships actually work out just fine. It's just preparation.
Right. And I think that's a good point. You always want to think about the divorce, right? Put into that original contract. Because at the time when people get married, right, they think it's going to be hunky dory, beautiful. Every day is going to be the best day of your life. And yet sometimes things happen. So let's prep for that in the original agreement. What are we going to have? How are we going to handle disputes? If somebody's underperforming, what is our standard of that going to be? How are we going to replace them? All of that. So love that. Very good point for all of our listeners. Now, I want to get some more of your wisdom here about these multifamily properties. I know that something you share in this space, especially with that, let's say 50 units and under, where we don't have institutional investors as much, you talk about treating these multifamily properties like institutional assets. So if I am another investor in that space, what does that actually mean to me? If I'm trying to analyze the property to buy or the one that I'm running and operating it, what would a few points be where you're like, this is how you treat it like an institutional asset?
So know your current market cycle. And then with the underwriting, based on pro forma, the brokers are going to try and push that. But at the same time, you need to know what the actual numbers are. And if there isn't a good rent growth happening, which is happening currently, either it's negative or it's flat in most markets, you need to underwrite for that and not prepare on the crystal ball. This is not something you just take a speculation at and do. And ultimately, so being conservative underwriter, I think, is what a lot of lessons I've learned for a lot of people. And then when it comes to running the property, that's when the real work starts, and you need to be on top of it every single day. I am always taking a quick glance at my dashboard with my property managers, the Appfolio and Buildium. I work in both of those. And every single week, I shoot off questions to the PM with what's happening with the unit turns, what's happening with delinquencies and collections, with specific maintenance on units. And then we prepare for pricing guidance for each month ahead of the renewals. We let them know everything that's happening. If leasing is falling short, I post the Zillow ad. I post Facebook ads. I am very much involved to make sure this property is going to run as best it can, because they don't own this asset that property managers see. There's only so much they're going to do. They're going to try their best. And I have one of the best property managers. Truly, I love her. And we have the best communication. But sometimes you need a little helping hand. And so that's where you have to step in as an owner and do a little extra work. And it's not a passive job. It is a true job, and it's active. And so if you're coming into real estate investing, if you want passive, then you should be an LP and with a good trusted operator.
Yeah, the GPs, or I know you do like the joint venture structures, all of it. When you're actively investing it in real estate, there's work. It is active. And I love what you're saying. You're checking the numbers. You always trust but verify, and then you're doing what you can to fix it. I love it. Now, you mentioned pro formas. So let's talk about that and getting into underwriting. Today's environment, expenses, insurance, financing. I've heard it seems like we're coming maybe to the end of this roller coaster ride after a few years, especially you in Florida with insurance. What are your best practices or your wisdom to people now? We're end of Q1 2026. What are your best practices in terms of underwriting that you would recommend to people?
Well, just keep shopping, also networking with people, other operators, seeing what they're paying. I mean, when you have a good network of people, everyone is typically sharing numbers with one another and contacts from vendors with one another. So that's huge. There's only so much you can do on your own. It literally takes a tribe. So if you have a good network around you, that is going to help you the best. And knowing your market inside out when it comes to vendors, this is something that just takes time. But once you do, you've built these relationships up. I personally go out there and find vendors when the quotes are too high. I just go find my own. So I reach into the network again. I reach out. Local realtors are a huge asset in this situation. They know so many different people. And so I try to build these relationships with other realtors and get their referrals. It goes hand in hand. So helping one another out, I think, is something that a lot of people just overlook the most simple thing of that, rather than just, I feel like they just guess on a lot of the underwriting, when really you need to really hone in on the market itself. And you can only do that with your network.